Title card, up next Ames City Council. Mayor, City Manager and Ames City Council sitting at a curved dais. Director of Finance Corey Goodnow and Budget Manager Nancy Mastella sit at the staff table.
I call the special meeting of the Ames City Council to order for March 24th, 2026. And Carly, would you just call the roll tonight? We have a couple people online.
Betcher?
Aye.
John?
It's here.
I don't know. Corey?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm here.
Yep.
Rollins?
Here.
B.D. Hanson?
Here.
And Garten.
Here.
Thank you. All right, one item on this agenda is required by the Code of Iowa, and public hearing regarding proposed property tax levy for fiscal year 2026-2027. Yeah, I think, Corey, you have a few things you want to just kind of do a little background, and then we'll open up the public hearing.
Yeah, so just a reminder, what we're doing tonight is a statutory requirement for a public hearing regarding the property tax levy. So the council is required to hear public feedback. There can be no action taken tonight. So really it's just to get feedback from the public. And I guess one of the things that occurs in anticipation of this meeting is a letter that we have on the screen is sent to all Iowa property owners. And so we're just going to run I think there's consensus that the statement is a little bit confusing. And so we're just going to run through a sample statement here really quick. And then we have some of our own data at the end too that we hope to talk about a little bit. So this is a similar statement that everybody should have received, and it's got the school district here on the top, has the county, and then of course the City of Ames is the one we're here to talk about tonight. Excuse me. It has our telephone number, our website, and then I think the thing that we'd want to look at tonight is the property tax piece. So this is the item that we're not looking at ag really tonight. We don't have a lot of ag property in the city. So we're looking at the general non-ag. So last year, the city collected about $37.6 million, and that resulted in a tax rate of about $10.30. I think the effective tax rate is what gets people confused. So the effective tax rate of $9.72 is the rate if the city had collected the same amount of property tax dollars, but there was an adjustment in the value. So if we collected the same $37.6 million in the upcoming fiscal year that we collected in the current fiscal year, that would have been the levy rate. But our proposed property tax collections is 39.7. So that results in a $10.27 levy rate. We'll scroll down here to the next piece. So this top table here is a little bit confusing. So you'll notice that on the far right side here, the city is about 33.69%. In this case, you can see the taxing district is 01001, which is Ames City, Ames Schools. We also have Ames City Gilbert Schools, and we have some property, I believe, in the Ames City Nevada Schools. So that only applies to the Ames City Ames School District. So I think the highlight of that is really that the city is about a third of the total levy. And then we scroll down here, you can see that this is a calculation for properties valued at $100,000 who received a 10% increase in their valuation. So if your valuation was $100,000 and went up to $110,000, this would be the impact. We do not believe that properties went up 10% in valuation. That's a little bit higher than we expect. It's about 8%. We'll show that on the next slide, but just wanted to point that out. So we were looking across here down at the city. So if you had a $100,000 property, we would have collected $489 in the current fiscal year. Under the proposed levy rate, we would collect $503 or a 2.86% increase. And then it also goes on to do commercial and industrial properties here. But that's, again, this is School County City. And of course, we're at a 10.64% increase. And that is larger because we've talked about this during the budget process, the levy rate or the rollback decreased. And we're going to talk about that in the next slide. So this is a familiar slide that we present to the council when we're doing our budget overview session. Again, you can see much of the information is similar. So $10.30 in the current fiscal year. The proposed rate for the upcoming fiscal year is $10.27. We believe there was about an 8% average increase in valuation year over year for residential properties. And then the rollback adjustment you can see is the line below. So the rollback for residential properties was 47.43% in the current fiscal year and 44.53% in the upcoming fiscal year. So what that means is last year, this should look pretty similar. The city collected $488.75, and we anticipate collecting $496.41 an increase of about $7.66, or about 1.57%. And again, the difference between those two things is the change in the valuation. There's probably some properties certainly that saw a 10% increase or higher, but on average, we expect about a 10 or 8% increase in valuation for residential properties. Same thing for commercial industrial, the same formula applies. It's a little bit different. We take the average valuation. So we take our total assessed value and divide it by taxable value. Actually, that's taxable divided by assessed. So we come up with a different rollback adjustment for both industrial and commercial. But you can see for commercial properties, we expect about a 10.54% increase. And we saw about a 20% increase in industrial valuation. So we'd expect about a 19.4% increase for those properties.
So Corey, let's pause on the industrial for a second. So we learned that there were some properties that were not assessed on schedule, and we've corrected all that. And thankfully, I thought this was going to be a much bigger deal than it is, but it's really a non-issue. But is that sort of baked into what we're seeing here in terms of that increase?
Yeah, I think that's the column here you can see with a $100,000 property to $119,000 property. That's really that big valuation increase for industrial property. So that is included in our calculation.
Okay, that's all I need. Thanks.
Yep.
That's a good point to bring up, because you asked the city assessor in the board of review, the conference board meeting, and she made it very clear that some properties hadn't been visited for over 10 years, industrial properties, that is.
Right.
So they're catching up, and they should have been, but they weren't. And she was not assessor when those were overlooked, essentially. Right. So anyway, so a person who's either watching or here, let's just say they had a house they got a notice that it was assessed at 250. Mm-hmm. What number would they use the 108 divided or the 100 to figure out what their increase is going to be?
Sure. So in that case, you would just multiply the 100% valuations by 2.5, and that would carry all the way through.
So 2.5 times $7
times 100,000. Yeah.
Well, and
times $7.65 would be the increase. Is that correct?
for interested parties, we have a calculator, don't we?
Yeah.
And that was our next question. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, right. I was going to say that's where I would steer someone if they were curious about that. Yeah.
Sure. We do have a calculator on the website. We did it for the first time last year.
Where can they find it too?
Yep,
So
I was just going to show you. So if you go to City of Ames, our website.
City of Ames website.
And you go to the finance webpage under the departments section, under my government.
So this is cityofames.org.
Yep. And you go to the finance department here. And you scroll down off to the right. We have a section called property tax, where we're talking about our property tax for the upcoming fiscal year. We have something to talk about. Looking out for the letter, talks about the valuation increase. And then we have City of Ames residential property tax calculator, where you can enter in your individual valuation. So it'll be important to enter in your 24 assessment and your 25 assessment that can be found on the county's Beacon website. And that should come out with exactly what and remember, this is just the city property taxes. So we're not talking about school or county or anything else. This is just the city portion of your property tax bill.
And what else does that show down there?
Yeah, so it shows how we spend those property tax dollars in the upcoming fiscal year. So we break them down by several different categories: public safety, utilities, transportation, parks and rec, all the way down to general governmental. And then it, of course, gives you kind of a property tax. We call it a receipt. So that's what you're getting for your property tax dollars.
Any other questions? Rachel or Anita, any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. I declare the public hearing on the proposed property tax levy for fiscal year July 1, 2026 to June 30, 2027 to be open. Anyone who wants to address council is welcome to come up to the podium, introduce themselves, and then offer comments or questions. All right. Seeing and hearing none, we'll declare the public hearing to be closed. What's the next steps that's going to happen?
Yep. So tonight, as part of the consent agenda, we'll set the public hearing for, I believe, April 14th.
So it's a second public hearing.
Second public hearing, yep, on the overall budget. And once that's approved, we submit that to the county, who ultimately submits to the state for approval.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move adjourn. Second.
Thank you. We are adjourned.